Okay, so today I want to introduce a new practice called Zen Noting. This is one of my favorite practices. I developed it a couple of years ago, but it's taken some time to sort of flesh it out. And in the last several months, it's really started to come together. So I'm very excited to share it with you today. And this practice, in simple terms, we could say in Zen Noting, we become one with what we want to notice as. And the becoming one part is kind of the reference to Zen, and the noticing what the noticing is the reference to Vipassana. And these are the two main inspirations for this practice, these two traditions, the Zen tradition and the Vipassana, or early Buddhist tradition of insight meditation. And more specifically, this practice was inspired by two different techniques of social practice that I'd come across. One, which again is connected to the Zen tradition, is called Big Mind. And Big Mind was developed by a Zen teacher named Genpo Roshi, and further developed by another of his students named Diane Musho Hamilton. And I studied some with Genpo, mostly with Diane, and found this practice of Big Mind to be so extraordinarily interesting and helpful. And it's a unique practice because in the practice of Big Mind, you make this move where you just become one with whatever it is you want to speak as. You become one with the voice of Big Mind, or one with the voice of compassion, as we're going to do, or one with the voice of fear, or the controller or the protector. You could become one with anything, really, that's part of who you are. And the big insight in Big Mind was that that actually what we can become one with is not just the what we call in that tradition the ego mind, or the ego voices, the small voices, the self voices, but you can also become one with these transpersonal voices or perspectives or states of consciousness, like compassion, or like joy, like wisdom. And then the other inspiration for this practice comes out of the Vipassana tradition, and specifically out of the social noting technique that Kenneth Folk developed. Even more specifically, the technique which we've done called there is noting, where you're saying there is, and then a word or two to note what you're sensing. There is seeing, there's thinking, there's planning. Bringing these two practices together, in a way, is what creates Zen noting. Because in Big Mind, often it's very open. You can just sort of become, say, compassion, and then you can notice anything that you notice. You can talk about it in very abstract terms, or you could speak in terms of your sensory experience, but there's no limitation on that. And so what I found in doing both is that there seems like a very natural marriage that's possible, where one could both make that incredible move of becoming one with what it is that we want to notice as, while at the same time keeping it very simple and precise, and down what my teacher Kenneth Folk called the ladder of abstraction. Keeping it very much close to the direct experience of what's happening in our most basic sensory field. So in this practice, Zen noting as compassion, the basic form of it is that we're going to say as compassion. That's the Big Mind part. We're becoming one with compassion, making this move as compassion. Then we're going to add there is, and then a word or two to describe what it is you're noticing as compassion. So it would look something like this. As compassion, there's softening. As compassion, there's heartfulness. As compassion, there's breathing. As compassion, there's tenderness. As compassion, there's not knowing. And you could continue on in that way, just really noticing what it's like as compassion. If you're doing it by yourself, that would be the practice. But doing it with others, making it a social meditation practice, means, in this case, that we're going to take turns noticing what we sense as compassion. And one thing I'd like to add here, because sometimes it can come up, is the question, well, like, well, how do I be compassion? And then we can start to kind of think about that. Well, how does that work? Like, what am I supposed to do? Well, it's kind of like a leap of faith. It's kind of like you just gotta be it. You just gotta do it. And the good news about doing it in a social context is, one, you can really fake it until you make it. That's one strategy. If you're not feeling it or you don't get it, just keep trying and see what happens. And whatever it is that you're sensing, you can note it anyway. Even if you don't feel like you're compassion, you can, as compassion, there's doubt and confusion. That's fine. That's okay. You can note that. The other good news about this practice and doing it in a social context is that it's very easy to start to find ourselves in the slipstream of others. So, like, if someone else is actually feeling it and they're being compassion, we're going to pick up on that, and it's going to make it easier for us to be it. And the idea here is that we're sort of all being it together. So, in a way, we can sort of get in each other's slipstreams. In the same way that a biker or a runner, they take turns. Someone takes the lead, everyone else follows in their slipstream. Here, we're doing the same thing. We're following in each other's wisdom streams. So this is the basic instructions around Zen noting.